Alright, well, this is the first video that I've ever done like this, where I'm just basically talking about the albums that I have, both on vinyl and CD, of course, because I do collect both, though I have way more CDs than I do vinyl. I actually have getting close to 300 CDs now, so I know that compared to a lot of people who do this kind of thing on YouTube, that's not much, but I don't really have the kind of money that I can spend on that, to my own volition, I guess you could say. So it's really more of a hobby. Every now and then, I usually go and buy at least one or two records a month. And it's something that I really do enjoy doing. I just really appreciate the sound of records as well. But most of them are back home in Newfoundland. I'm living in Montreal right now, and I don't actually have a record player with me at the moment, so it does feel kind of redundant, I guess you could say, considering my record player is back home. But you know, I still do like buying albums. So first up is E-Song with Arctis. It's a pretty gnarly slab of progressive black metal, I guess you could say. It's on black vinyl, I believe. Just take it out here. Yeah. So it's actually got four individual discs. I guess you call them discs. I don't know. I don't know if you would call this thing here like specifically a vinyl, especially when there's two of them in the package. But yeah, this album is fantastic. Lots of great tracks on here. My personal favorite is actually Until I Too Dissolve. Fantastic. Also, Mass Darkness, which is the single that came out for this record. Absolutely fantastic. I haven't listened to E-Song's stuff since this. I think he's released a new album recently, actually. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. But fantastic artist. Up next is an album from my teenage years, something that I was shocked when I found at the record store. I never thought I would see this in person. One of my favorite stoner records of all time, Jex Thoth, self-titled. Love the album art on this. It's actually what really drew me to it in the first place, was the album art, because I mean it's so unique, you know. I've never seen an album art like this before. It's just the red and the white juxtaposed against each other. It's almost got like a Christmassy vibe, but yet still the logo too, like the Jex Thoth logo is fantastically designed. Came out on a record label called I Hate, which is a fantastic label name. And here's the inside of the sleeve. Fantastic. And again, here's the front and the back together, because it's actually one big image. Yeah. My favorite song on this is definitely Separated at Birth, which amazing song. It was the first song I ever heard from this band, and yeah, like I said, I've been following them since my high school days. My favorite stoner doom sludge, well, not really sludge, occult rock album that I've ever heard. It's my favorite of all time, in that genre at least. Excuse me. Up next is something a little bit different, but also a classic album regardless. Enter the Wu-Tang. Now, I'll be completely honest, I've never been a huge fan of hip-hop. Even when I was growing up, I had a lot of friends who liked hip-hop, but I was definitely one of those, it's metal or nothing, it's the only thing that exists, so I was definitely one of those kind of people. But recently, specifically like last year, I started to get the attitude, I had an attitude shift of saying, like, you know, why am I restraining myself to one genre of music when there is so much greatness out there that I'm not privy to, really. And I really wanted to make a a focused effort to change my outlook on music. And I mean, I wasn't really an elitist at the time that I decided that, but I still didn't really understand or appreciate the sounds of hip-hop as a genre. And I think that this album, for a person who's never really given that genre the time of day, this is the perfect starting off point. It wasn't technically my starting off point. I was also listening to Straight Outta Compton last year when I started listening to this too, but this is just such a fantastic album. Every song on here is a banger. Every last one of them. My personal favorites are, well, I don't want to say the title of it, but track 2 and also The Mystery of Chess Boxing, which is fantastic. I love that song so much that I actually know all the words to it now. So, and also, out of all the MCs on this record, because I know there's like 8 or 9 of them in the group, gotta be Old Dirty Bastard, without a doubt, my favorite. He's got such a unique style that, you know, none of the other guys really can compare to. And, you know, people say like, oh, like Method Man is technically the best or whatever, but I just love how fucking crazy Old Dirty Bastard is. This weird like off-key singing that he does that you wouldn't expect to hear on a record like that. It's fucking nuts. Up next is we have The Cult Is Alive by Dark Throne. Dark Throne is without a doubt my favorite black metal band. No one else really compares to them, and for good reason, because they have a sound that really struck a chord with me. It's like they started out as death metal, and then they had this really traditional purist black metal style with the 3 Transylvanian Hunger, Under a Funeral Moon, and A Blazing Northern Sky. Those 3 are classic black metal records, but then they started going off into this more almost like blackened speed metal style, and then they went crust punk, and this is one of those albums that's kind of like a blend of those. Like, it's got the crust punk style, and it has one of my favorite Dark Throne songs of all time on it, Too Old Too Cold, which is a fun as fuck song to play on guitar. Here's the inside. It's just really dark, you can't really see anything. It's just grim and everything that you'd expect from a black metal band. There's the track list on the back. Yeah, and obviously it's on black vinyl, because of course it is, it's black metal. Up next is Between the Buried and Me, a classic band from my high school years with their self-titled album. You know, this album does not get a whole lot of love, even by fans of the band. It's their debut. It's not as progressive or intricate as their newer stuff, especially in comparison to Colors, which is really when they took off and started headfirst down that road of really well-produced, really incredibly complex and thought-provoking progressive metal with a lot of experimentation. But this is definitely more of a, I guess, traditional metalcore, deathcore style record. But it does have some experimental leanings on it. You know, it's not like it's cookie cutter stuff like a lot of things in that genre are. I'd still, even if, you know, it's not as good as a lot of their newer stuff, I still think this album holds a lot of merit, and I still would recommend it as a record to check out if you're a fan of the band and you haven't given this one a listen yet because of the opinions you might have heard regarding its sound in comparison to those later records. I still say give this one a shot, because it's still got some great songs on it. More of Myself to Kill, Arsonist, and of course the last one, Chevenel Cut a Flip, which I have no idea what the fuck that means, but it's a deadly song. And there's actually a lyric sheet on the inside that came with this one, so that's pretty cool. That's the front there, and most of the lyrics are on the back. So that's pretty awesome. By the way, obviously you probably know Between the Buried and Me did just come out with a new record, and it's fucking savage. Automata Part 1, I think is what it's called. So next is something a little bit different again, although still within the realm of the metal sphere, I guess you could say. Perturbator with Dangerous Days. And this is another vinyl that has four sides, but 2 discs to it. And of course, it's on black vinyl. This is a fantastic album. I believe it's Perturbator's debut, though I'm not entirely sure. And you know, it's, if you don't know who Perturbator is, he is a synthwave artist popularized by the I guess cult status record label now known as Blood Music. There's the back. Yeah, these, I would actually single-handedly credit Blood Music with the popularity that this genre has received, because if you look at their Bandcamp page, it's not just Perturbator who they have. It's they also have Ghost, I believe, is on their label, and also Dan Terminus, and if I'm not mistaken, Carpenter Brute as well, who I'm going to see in a few weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that. But this is a great starting off point for somebody who wants to get into this genre. Synthwave is, if you don't know what it is, it's basically music that is obviously made with synths and really heavily inspired by the soundtracks of old action and horror films from the 80s. So as you can tell by the style of this artwork here that that's what they're going for, and it really nails it. I can't remember which song is it. Yeah, so She Is Young, She Is Beautiful, She Is Next is my favorite song by Perturbator. It's on this album, which is the reason why I bought it. And yeah, it's fantastic. Definitely highly recommend this one. And here's the inside. The sleeves are black, which I like on the inside. This is the second disc, I think. And again, like I mentioned, it's black vinyl. So that's pretty cool. Really stoked for that Carpenter Brute show, though. I saw Perturbator live actually last year. I think it was in October, and I've never danced that hard in my life. I'm not really much of a dancer, but oh my god, I can't get this back in. Oh shit. Okay, I'll leave that for later and deal with that as the time comes. But yeah, it was an amazing show, and really had a good time. They played with, well, he technically, because there's only one guy, played with Lil Matos, which is a French synthwave duo, and another guy, another single producer, synthwave artist named Mole Machine Music. I can't remember if that's like his full name or if it's just Mole Machine, but they were all awesome. Next is Dark Throne again, with Dark Thrones and Black Flags. Another classic slab of blackened heavy metal / blackened crust punk, whatever you want to call it. And again, just like I mentioned before, this is just another really great record from that era of Dark Throne's music. And I really want to give Dark Throne a lot of credit, because they're actually one of my biggest inspirations as a musician myself, just because they don't give a fuck. They do whatever they want. They have their style, and they have this almost like cultish reverence for old school heavy metal that they pepper the design of their albums with. So like here on the back, you can see it says Gilva Fenris Nagel, vocals, heavy metal thunder, songwriting, photo of the Dictator by Elon Naper. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but and here in quotations it says Mao Tse Tung Rock. Nice play on words. Then on the other side it's Nocturnal Culto, who you can barely make out because the photo is so fucking dark, which I love. Nocturnal Culto, guitars, bass, Rotten Exhale, songwriting, Pletrophil, and proud member of Inlandet Manscore. Photo by Metzbo. I have no idea what any of that means. And then on the bottom there it says Break the Chains. Fantastic. Here's the close up the album art. Classic. I think my favorite song off this record has to be Norway in September. I just love the slow start. Da-na, da-na. It's heavy as fuck. I love that song. And I also love this. They also do this kind of thing with the inside, with the sleeve itself. There's a photo here. And I think that's just Fenriz by a campfire that it looks like he just extinguished, and the sun is just coming up over the horizon, or it's just going down. I can't really tell. And obviously, again, black vinyl. And then all the lyrics on the back. So that's pretty cool. Next up is, there's a lot of these, by the way, because this is the first time I've done it. I obviously purchased a lot of records since I moved to Montreal. Band that's caused a little bit of controversy lately, Young and in the Way, with their self-titled album. By the way, I love the artwork for this, just a heavily tatted hand holding a fucking combat knife. It's pretty sick. And the back, just the track list, black, white font, very simple. And if you're wondering why these guys have caused controversy lately, it's because one or a couple of members of the band have been accused of sexual harassment. I'm not entirely sure of the specifics of the claims, but apparently some of them were accused of sexual harassment, and they just decided to call it quits and just said, well, fuck this, our career is done, end it all. I mean, that to me seems pretty damning, but who's really to say? I made a mistake, by the way. This isn't a self-titled album. It's actually called When Life Comes to Death, and the title is on the inside. I don't know if you can see it because it's basically black on black, and the text itself is just a little bit off color from the rest of the inside, but yeah. And my favorite song on this album is, where is it? Be My Blood. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Or it could be Take My Hand. I'm not sure, but one of them, the song that I really like, it has this Gorgoroth vibe. It sounds very similar to Sign of an Open Eye, which is my favorite Gorgoroth song. It's just slow, heavy as fuck, just punches you in the face with every kick of the drum, and that's the song that turned me on to this band. And also interesting, it's a clear vinyl, so that's different. All the rest of the ones I have are black. I also gotta say, I really like the Young and in the Way logo. I know that a lot of bands have that cliche of like taking all the letters in their name and forming some weird obscure symbol out of it, but I actually really like what Young and in the Way have done. I don't know if you can see it there, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I think the first time I ever saw that done was actually with J.R.R. Tolkien, who did that with his name when he put his signature on books and stuff. So, regardless of the accusations, this is a dope album, and I would highly recommend this. It's kind of like blackened crust punk, but not like Dark Throne style blackened crust punk. It's a lot more heavier and with more modern production, but it sounds really grimy still. So the production on this thing is fantastic. Up next, we're almost at the end for vinyl. Classic EP. Haunting the Chapel. What else can I really say about this? I mean, if you're watching this and you haven't fucking heard this EP yet, where the fuck have you been for the last I don't know how many years? Cool thing about this though is it's also not a black vinyl, so I just ate my words. That's not the only vinyl that I have that isn't black. It's clear with blood spatter. So that is pretty fucking dope, in my opinion. And of course, all of these songs are classics. Chemical Warfare, Capture of Sin, Haunting the Chapel. aggressive perfecter. I think that Haunting the Chapel itself, the title track of this EP, is my favorite. So I love the fact that I own this. And finally, for records at least, I think this is actually the first one that I purchased when I moved to Montreal. Defending the Throne of Evil, Carpathian Forest. This is also a great black metal album. Definitely a classic by this band. I love the album artwork. It reminds me of Cradle of Filth's first album. It's got the same color palette, so I like that. The juxtaposition of black, white, and I guess really light blue as well. And on the back, just the blurry ass photo of a forest. Typical black metal stuff, but you know, what else do you expect from one of the genre's greats? And you know, this album has such great song titles too. It's Darker Than You Think, The Well of All Human Tears, Put to Sleep Like a Sick Animal, Christian Incoherent Drivel, Necrophiliac Anthropophagus Maniac, The Old House on the Hill, and Cold Murderous Music, which is a very good description of the music that Carpathian Forest makes. And then on the inside, you have this awesome photo of the band, which is so cool. And all the lyrics on the other side. And I do believe that, so it's a black sleeve as well. Oh, wow, I'm just completely off on this. This vinyl's blue. I completely forgot about that. Isn't that dope? I love that. That's so sick. I mean, you never would expect that from a black metal band, and lo and behold, Carpathian Forest, the only guys to ever include pink and purple in their album art, come out with a blue vinyl. Well, it does it for records, at least, but it's not it. I do have a bunch of CDs as well, which I'm very happy to own because I love all of these. First up is another controversial band, but you know, I think that kind of comes with the territory at this point if you're black metal. Taka with Noragsvapen. I used to listen to this album all the time when I would walk home from work back when I lived in St. John's. And I remember the first time I did that, it was getting close to winter, but it wasn't quite winter yet. It was like sometime in like late October, so the weather was getting really shit. And it was just like the cold, bitter night in St. John's, and fog was everywhere. And I had this album on my MP3 player at the time. And I've never been able to recreate that kind of atmosphere of walking down an empty, desolate road in the middle of the night in cold-ass Newfoundland, full of mist, listening to Nordbundet and Du Ville Ville Vestland, and also Mir, which those three are definitely my favorite tracks on this record, especially Du Ville Ville Vestland. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly because it is Norwegian, but I love how that song has this old western, almost like classic rock vibe, especially with the breakdown at the end. Yeah, even despite Taka's controversy, I would still recommend this. This is a great, honestly, in my opinion, one of the greatest black metal albums ever made. And that is just my opinion. Up next, a band that I saw recently. I can't remember the name of the venue that I saw them at, but honestly the venue was shit, and the sound wasn't really good, but they tried their best. The Atlas Moth with Coma Noir. Oh, this it's kind of hard to see the album art because it is black. I mean, noir is in the title, but this is a great album. I guess the best word to describe them, the best genre to describe them with would be post-metal. I think that's what they call themselves. But yeah, this album is great. My favorite song on it would be, it's a toss-up between Galactic Brain and Actual Human Blood and Smiling Knife. Those three are fantastic. There's lots of great melodies on this, lots of great riffs. The drums, fantastic. Definitely highly recommended this. It's on Prosthetic Records as well, which is one of my favorite labels. Two here from a band I mentioned earlier, Cradle of Filth. Cruelty and the Beast and Dusk in Her Embrace. Now, I do love Cruelty and the Beast. It's a fantastic record. But in all honesty, I haven't listened to it as much as I have Dusk in Her Embrace, because this is actually my favorite Cradle album. Although Hammer of the Witches is creeping up there, because I was blown away when I heard that, but this to me is Cradle of Filth at their peak. They have not been able to top, for me at least, a gothic romance, Red Roses for the Devil's Whore, which is one of the best songs they've ever recorded, and I don't think that they'll ever be able to top that one. Just the sheer complexity and the melodies in it, fantastic.